Welcome back to The Void. This is the third part of our review/analysis series on The House on Mango Street. Before you watch this video, make sure you've read pages 26 through 38. Last time, we talked about Esperanza's neighborhood and some of the people that interact with her on a daily basis. Today, we're going to dig in a little deeper to some of the main themes in the book. Esperanza tells us about Louis's cousin, Marin. She mentioned Marin earlier, but now it's evident that Esperanza has spent some more time around her. Marin lives in the house with her aunt and uncle. Her mother and father are said to be back in Puerto Rico. She's clearly a few years older and seems to be a little preoccupied with boys. She explains, the birds and the bees to Esperanza, and gives her lots of beauty tips. She stays out late and smokes cigarettes. Her family talks about sending her back to Puerto Rico. This is all to show that she's rebellious. She has boys catcalling her, which tells us that she's pretty. She isn't intimidated by their harassment, which tells us that she is comfortable with having men look at her in, that way. The thing that I find the most telling about Marin, though, is that she mentions her boyfriend in Puerto Rico, but then turns around and talks about getting an office job downtown so she could meet a successful man to marry her and provide for her. What do you think Marin's priorities are? How do you think she sees the world? She seems to think that if she finds the right guy to take care of her, she's going to have everything that she wants. She has idealized the idea of being a housewife. Moving on, we're going to get more of Esperanza's feelings on her racial identity. She's mentioned to us before that she is aware of her Hispanic identity, but she's only directly mentioned it in relation to how her white American teachers mispronounce her name. Now, she's talking about how people from outside her community react when they wind up in her neighborhood by accident. The strangers don't know these people, and so they perceive them as scary. But Esperanza knows them, and they don't scare her at all. They're just her neighbors. But when Esperanza's family goes into other neighborhoods, they lock their doors. Do you think Esperanza is aware of the hypocrisy here? She says, "All brown, all around, we are safe. But watch us drive into a neighborhood of another color, and our knees go shakety-shake." She sees both sides. She sees people who fear her neighborhood because it's different from their own, but she also experiences fear when she is in an unfamiliar place. But now, it's time to go back and talk a little more about those Vargas kids. Remember them? Nenny isn't allowed to play with them because she'll turn out just like them, and they're a bunch of wild hooligans. And we can't have Nenny be a wild hooligan, can we? They do sound pretty awful. They're rowdy, they cause property damage, they hurt themselves and each other, and they're really rude. Esperanza believes it's because their family is broken. Mr. Vargas left one day without any explanation, and left Miss Vargas with all the children and no money. The point here is that Rosa Vargas is powerless. Her power is taken away from her by her husband, who married her, started a family with her, and then left her penniless and overtaken by rowdy children that she's too busy to raise properly. At least, that's Esperanza's take. That's why she cries every day. Miss Vargas, I mean. Imagine the frustration she must feel. Because we see everything through Esperanza's eyes, we don't know if there's anything Miss Vargas could do to get child support from her husband, but my guess is that if you consider the setting, a poor community in the 1960s, I'd be willing to bet good money that the methods for Miss Vargas to help herself aren't there. And if they are, she doesn't know about them, or she's not able to access them. Following the theme of powerlessness, Esperanza next tells us about Alicia. Alicia is a college student, but she has to work very hard. Her mother died, and so her father expects her to get up early to pack his lunch and complete the housework. He doesn't ease the burden on her at all because she's a student. In fact, he doesn't even seem to think that she should be going to school. That's not the only burden Alicia bears. It sounds like she spends a lot of time getting to and from school, and as a result, she's up late doing her homework and studying. On top of all that, her father appears to be gaslighting her. Let's talk about what gaslighting is. In 1944, a movie came out called Gaslight. This movie was about a man who manipulates his wife into believing that she's insane. In the film, he does this so that he can access her large inheritance. But in reality, his tactics are frequently used, in the real world, by all kinds of abusers and manipulative people. This man would move photos around the house, hide his own things, and then ask his wife why she had done it. He would dim and brighten the gaslights in the house, hence the name of the movie, and when she noticed, he would tell her that she was just imagining things. Over time, the woman in the film became anxious and eventually began to question if she really was going insane. Because the film is such a good example of the tactic getting someone under your control by making them question their own thoughts and experiences, the title of the movie has become the word used to describe it, hence, gaslighting. So, back at Mango Street, Alicia sees mice in the house, but her dad tells her that she's just imagining it. Close her eyes and they'll go away. Now Alicia's afraid of mice. Alicia, like Miss Vargas, is having her power taken away by a man in her life. Alicia, like Marin, is a young woman who spends her days imagining her own future. But unlike Marin, she doesn't believe that getting married to the right guy is going to solve her problem. Alicia believes that getting an education is the best way to improve her situation. Do you agree? That's a lot of heavy material right there. The next vignette is a little more fun. It's about Esperanza's friend Darius, who once said that a cloud looked like God. What a shift in tone. We've gone from women who are struggling in a world that doesn't allow them any control to a dumb kid next door who said something wise once. Well, remember, we are seeing everything through Esperanza's eyes. And Esperanza is a child. She's processing some really heavy subject material here, but she also likes to look at clouds and play with the other kids. Kids like to argue, too. I think cockroach jelly is a great insult, by the way. And the whole time, Esperanza is arguing with Rachel and Lucy. Nenny is in the background, innocently giving all the clouds human names. It's kind of a cute image. A little girl staring at the sky, pointing at clouds, and coming up with all the names she can think of for them. But it's a little spoiled when you remember being young and getting into ferocious arguments with other neighborhood kids. I don't know if that's a shared experience that we all have or if it's just me, but I remember the unpleasant tension and anxiety that came with having a loud argument with a close friend. We usually made up afterwards, though. Esperanza, Rachel, and Lucy will make up as well. They're just kids after all. Whew, so that's part 3. There's some pretty heavy material there, and we're just getting started. I hope you guys are enjoying the book. I know I've really enjoyed reading all your responses. Here's what I want to hear about today. I want you to think about the next 10 years of your life for a minute. During that time, you're going to graduate from high school and move on to something else. Maybe college, maybe a job, maybe a series of jobs or a career. Maybe you'll live on your own, maybe with friends, maybe with family, maybe you'll stay home for a while. Maybe you'll get married yourself. Who knows? A lot can change in 10 years, believe me. But your future is up to you. Write a few sentences about where you think you want your life to go, and the choices you can make to keep it going in the direction you want. This section of the book is largely about power and control. and I want to hear about how you are going to exert your power and control over your own lives as you continue to grow. I admit it's a big, deep question, but you aren't making any huge commitments. Just give it a little thought and share with us what your thinking is. That's all for part 3. Next time, it's going to start getting a little more serious. Bye now.